Troy has just fallen. 10 years of siege, ended in one night. Inside a wooden horse packed with soldiers the Trojans dragged through their own gates as a victory trophy. Odysseus, king of a small rocky island called Ithaca, should be sailing home a hero. He has his ships, he has his men. He has his wife, Penelope, and his infant son, Telemachus, waiting for him across the sea. Both of them still picturing the man who left for war 2 decades earlier, not the one who's about to come back. The trip should take weeks. It takes 10 years. And almost none of what happens to him has anything to do with fighting. It's the getting home that nearly destroys him. The trouble starts almost immediately. Sailing away from Troy, Odysseus and his men raid a coastal town belonging to the Cicones, a people allied with the Trojans, hoping for one last round of plunder before the long trip home. It works for about a night. His men, drunk on stolen wine, refuse to leave when Odysseus tells them the raid is over and it's time to go. The Cicones regroup overnight, call in reinforcements from inland, and hit the Greek camp at dawn while half the men are still hungover. Odysseus escapes with his fleet, but he loses men on the very first stop of the journey, before he's even cleared familiar waters. It's a small, almost forgettable disaster compared to what's coming, but it sets the pattern for everything that follows. Every time Odysseus's crew gets greedy, curious, or disobedient, someone dies for it. A storm off Cape Malea blows the fleet completely off course, out past the map his men actually know, into the territory of legend. The first stop there is the land of the lotus eaters. Odysseus sends scouts ashore, and they eat the local lotus fruit, and it doesn't poison them. It's worse. It makes them forget home entirely. They lie on the beach, blissed out, wanting nothing except more lotus and no memory of Ithaca at all. Odysseus has to physically drag his own men back to the ships and chain them to the rowing benches until the drug wears off. It's the first hint of what this whole journey is actually testing. Not strength, not courage. Whether a person can be seduced into forgetting who they're trying to get back to. Next comes the island of the Cyclops, and the story most people already know without knowing where it's from. Odysseus and a scouting party enter the cave of Polyphemus, a one-eyed giant, son of Poseidon, god of the sea, hoping to find hospitality or at least supplies. Bad timing. Polyphemus comes home, blocks the cave entrance with a boulder no group of men could ever hope to move, and starts eating Odysseus's crew, 2 at a time, for dinner, washing them down with milk from his flock like it's the most ordinary meal in the world. Odysseus doesn't fight him. He can't, trapped in a cave with a creature that outweighs his entire crew combined. Instead, he gets the giant drunk on wine he'd brought as a gift, tells him his name is Nobody, then blinds his one eye with a sharpened, fire-hardened stake while he sleeps off the wine. When Polyphemus screams for help, and the other Cyclopes outside ask who's attacking him, he shouts that nobody is hurting him, and they leave him alone, assuming he's talking nonsense in a drunken sleep. It's clever. It should be a clean, quiet escape. The men smuggled out clinging to the bellies of the giant's own sheep as he blindly checks their backs at the cave entrance. Then Odysseus ruins it. Sailing away, safely out of reach, he can't resist shouting his real name back at the blinded giant, taking credit for the trick because his pride won't let the victory go unclaimed. Polyphemus prays to his father Poseidon for revenge, giving the god a name and a target. And from that single moment of pride, the god of the sea becomes Odysseus's personal enemy for the rest of the voyage. Every storm from here on is partly his own fault. Iolus, keeper of the winds, tries to help. He gives Odysseus a leather bag containing every storm wind in the world, sealed shut, so that only the gentle west wind blows his ships home. They get within sight of Ithaca, close enough to see smoke from the fires. And that's when Odysseus's own crew, convinced the bag is secretly full of gold he's hiding from them, opens it while he sleeps. Every wind bursts out at once and blows the entire fleet back to where they started. Iolaus refuses to help a second time, assuming the gods must hate this man. This is arguably the cruelest moment in the whole story, not because a monster caused it, but because his own people did, out of simple, human suspicion. The Laestrygonians are next, and they're barely even a fight. This tribe of cannibal giants destroys 11 of Odysseus's 12 ships in their harbor, hurling boulders down from cliffs onto the fleet before the men can even escape. Only Odysseus's own ship survives because he was cautious enough not to dock it deep in the harbor with the others. In a single afternoon, he loses almost his entire fleet and nearly all his men, still not even halfway home. With one ship left, Odysseus reaches the island of the witch goddess Circe, who turns half his remaining crew into pigs the moment they eat her food. He's saved by the god Hermes, who gives him a protective herb and tells him exactly how to resist her magic. Odysseus confronts Circe, forces her to change his men back, and ends up staying on her island for a full year, in no apparent hurry to leave. It's easy to miss this detail, but it matters. The man who spent the whole story desperate to get home spends 12 months not trying to. Even heroes get tired of the journey sometimes. Circe tells him what has to happen next, and it's the strangest chapter in the whole poem. Odysseus has to sail to the edge of the world and enter the underworld itself, to speak with the dead prophet Tiresias, the only one who can tell him how to actually survive the rest of the trip. He does it. He speaks to the ghost of his own mother, who died of grief waiting for him, without knowing yet that he'd left. He speaks to fallen comrades from Troy. He gets his answers, and he sails back to the world of the living, carrying the weight of everyone he's already lost. Then the famous dangers, back to back. The Sirens, whose song is so beautiful and so specific, promising each sailor exactly the knowledge he most wants to hear, that men leap into the sea and drown just trying to reach them. Odysseus has his men plug their ears with beeswax and has himself tied to the mast so he can hear the song without being able to act on it, becoming the only man in mythology to hear the Sirens sing and survive, straining against the ropes and begging his own crew to let him go while they row on, deaf and unmoved. Then Scylla and Charybdis, a six-headed monster on one side of a narrow strait and a ship-swallowing whirlpool on the other, an impossible choice where any route costs him something, and there is no version of the passage that costs him nothing. He chooses Scylla, sacrificing 6 men, 1 per head, snatched screaming off the deck as the ship scrapes past, rather than risk the whole ship and every remaining man in the whirlpool. It's the coldest decision in the entire story, and it's presented as the correct one, the arithmetic of leadership stripped down to its ugliest form. His crew, starving and stranded by bad winds on the island of the sun, god Helios, breaks the one rule they were given while Odysseus is asleep, and slaughters the god's sacred cattle for food, roasting the meat even as the hides crawl on the ground and the flesh bellows on the spits, a warning they choose to ignore because hunger has made the warning easy to dismiss. Every single man on the ship dies for it days later, in a storm sent as punishment, except Odysseus, who never touched the cattle and never even wanted to, and who washes up alone, with nothing, no ship, no crew, no possessions, on the island of the nymph Calypso. He stays there 7 years, not fighting, not sailing, just waiting wanted by a goddess who offers him immortality and eternal youth if he'll stay forever at her side, and refusing her anyway, sitting on the shore every day, staring out at a sea that never brings a ship, because immortality on the wrong island was never the same as home, no matter how comfortable the wrong island turned out to be. When the gods finally intervene, moved by Athena's persistent pleading on his behalf, and force Calypso to let him go, he builds a raft with his own hands out of whatever timber the island offers, gets shipwrecked one more time for good measure when Poseidon spots him and whips up one final storm out of spite, and washes up, exhausted, naked, and alone, on the shore of the Phaeacians, the last stop before Ithaca. It's there, finally safe, fed and clothed by a people who have no idea who he is, that he tells his own story out loud for the first time, the very story you've just heard, to a hall full of strangers who weep at parts of it despite never having met him. And when he finally reaches Ithaca, 20 years after he first left for Troy, he doesn't walk in through the front door as a king. Athena disguises him as an old beggar, and he arrives unrecognized by almost everyone he loves, forced to watch, silently, as over 100 suitors occupy his own house, courting his wife and eating through his family's wealth on the assumption that he died at sea long ago. He has to reclaim a home that has spent 2 decades assuming he was dead, one careful, disguised step at a time, before he can even reveal that he's alive at all. 10 years to fight a war, 10 more just to get back from it. And somewhere in the wreckage of ships, men, and mistakes along the way, that's the part of the story that outlasted all the monsters. Not that he made it home. That making it home was somehow the hardest part of the whole thing.